it's an old statement and very true, and you'll hear it repeated many times. Once if you haven't heard it before, now that you've heard it, you're going to hear it a lot, which is that idea that hurt people hurt people. And that's that's a truism. And sometimes we're on the dishing out end of that. Sometimes we feel hurt ourselves, so we hurt other people. And sometimes we're on the receiving end, where other people who have been hurt us. And today we're looking at the latter, and maybe with some implications for the former. About what do you do when people are really hurtful, say hurtful things, do hurtful things? What is a way to hold it? And we're going to get at this sort of elliptically, get it at it from a different angle. It's interesting, looking at the book Secrets of Heaven by Emanuel Swedenborg. It's this essentially this Bible study, this deep canonical Bible study that we use a lot here in Christian New Church congregations to try to take a look at what's the Lord trying to tell us in these Bible stories. And one of the things Swedenborg talks a lot about is sort of the primacy of love. And it's love that acts out through wisdom. So we have love as the ultimate reality that is clothed with wisdom. In other words, the how-tos of life. And we go out there and we that's how we act. Love taking form through wisdom out there into useful service. That would be it in a nutshell. And one of the things that's challenging, right, is what do you do when you feel really hurt? Because it's so hard to shake that. Yesterday we had sermon writing team and wonderful conversation with people. We're talking about how hard it is when somebody says something hurtful or does something hurtful, which is legitimately hurtful. I mean, these things really do happen. And despite knowing we can know all the right things, the right way to approach it. We can know it's probably not about us. It's probably more about them. We know it's really their problem, not our problem. We know this, we know that. We know all these things, but they go right out the window in a hot second because we feel hurt. And hurt people, and that tends to be like a domino cascading effect. So what might be a way to sort of look at it differently? And I want to look at a small little passage, a small little chunk out of the book Secrets of Heaven, and just take a look at the implications of this. And this is, again, it's a little line in there, but when you read it, really start to think about it, it's pretty darn profound. It's talking about that what happens when we're regenerated. In other words, when our heart of stone has become a heart of flesh, when God has helped us with moving forward in life to become much more loving people, to really function under the auspices of the better angels of our nature. And this is what happens. He says, therefore, everyone who reaches this point has the faith that comes of love for others. That's interesting, right? So it's a faith that comes from love of others, a faith that grows out of that love. Now, what could that mean? Well, let's just trace it through here for a second. And I'd ask you to hold someone who right now you're feeling hurt by. And I imagine you may not have someone, you may need to dig way back in the past, and that's fine. But just hold for a second that hurt, that painful experience. What were the words? What were the actions? What was the hard part of it? Because we don't want to sort of short circuit all that. And what is a faith that is born out of love? What does that mean in these situations? Well, it doesn't mean, I think, necessarily that we go back to being all chummy with these people. I do believe there are times where we have to be really clear with boundaries, really clear with, I cannot be around this person. It's just too toxic. It's just too hard. But we can do that, and at the same time, try to come from this place of a faith born of love. What does that mean? Well, faith born of love, if we look at love in its core, one of the key parts there is goodwill. And love really carries with it goodwill. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we're going to come from a place of just wishing the best from them. And we may need to be a million miles away from them, but we still come at it from that place of goodwill. And then as we reach out, we have a faith, and the faith that comes out of goodwill is that God has their journey. I can't say that strongly enough. And that may come across as like, that's not a big deal. It's actually a huge deal. When we get that, all right, so I'm going to come at it from goodwill. I'm going to have faith that God has their journey too, and He does. That's not a big leap of faith to take. But God has their journey too. it sort of takes away the idea that we need to change the immediacy of the situation or get it all cleaned up or just really really, I don't know, like get under the hood and get it all repaired. I've seen a lot of the time as a pastor where there are those situations where that's probably not the right answer. And sometimes when people push too hard too quickly to repair all things, it doesn't turn out terribly well. Sometimes we just have to say, all right, we need to have some distance here. That was hurtful. Doesn't mean we don't tell them that's hurtful. It just means we're just clear that that's hurtful. And yet we still are coming from goodwill. And the goodwill is just trusting that it has that faith, that is trust that the Lord has their journey too. And literally, I think one little, I don't want to say trick, but one way to think of this is this is where meditation can become so important, where literally you can picture however you want to picture it. You can picture that kind of loving energy. You can even embody it of sorts. You can embody a way to be with the person, and um, you know, and doing it just in a way where you're just going to look at them with the eyes of goodwill, which means the eyes of compassion. And what you're going to do is you're just going to wish them well, and you're just going to be so clear of just acknowledging God has it. God has their journey. And that for me can be really helpful and very very settling. So friends, this weekend, I'm sure, like most of us watching this, and you may be watching it next week or next month, who knows? But you probably will have been tweaked at some point in time over the course of however your day or week looks. And can you, in those moments, really think, okay, what does a faith born of love look like here? And in other words, what does goodwill, reaching out there into the world and really seeing them very softly, seeing them and knowing that God has their journey too, and that this is an eternal thing that does tend to shift things. I mean, it's just a little aside. Like I mean, God has eternity to work with all of us, with them and with you. And I do believe love wins. I do believe that in the end these things get sorted out. Maybe not in this life. I want to be clear about that, but that they do get sorted out. God's got an eternity to love. God, the love embodied, has eternity to work with. I'm going to put my chin on that in the end is what will win. And that is the end is the story that's always being told, and the story that we are all held in. So that's my thought, dear friends. I hope that makes sense. And I hope you have a great weekend. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little breath. We're going to be shifting gears here. We're going to do a little breath. We're going to listen to our prayer bell. We're going to do a little prayer, a little meditation, and we'll say hi to folks on social media. So, with that, friends, let's ring our little prayer bell here. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, let's give a little cheery hello to anyone who might be joining us this morning. Let us take a look. All righty. All right. Linda, good morning to you. Gabriella, good morning to you as well. And Mandy, thank you for the reminder. This is an eternal process. And it just is. You know, Mandy, I may have mentioned this before, but I read a great sermon and the guy said, think about the person who's really, really did you a number, really kind of screwed you over. And how long of a sentence would you give them? Would you give them 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And he said, it's interesting, even with human beings, like we would never give somebody an eternal sentence. We just wouldn't. And I think God's the same way. Like God's always opening up so much. Anne Lamott, the quote, no doubt many of you have heard Anne Lamott's famous quote, God saves a lot more people than we would, which makes me laugh consistently. All right. So let's flip over onto this other page. All right. Sherry writes, have a good weekend. Stay cool. And we will. It is already roasty toasty out here in Eastern Pennsylvania. So wishing you and yours all the very best, friends. Have a great weekend. God bless. And we will talk to you again on Tuesday. Bye-bye. Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today.